welcome back to OC Avery, and welcome to part one of a special set of Zoom room calls we have with Mr. Jack Lloyd. Now, hopefully you should know who Jack Lloyd is. If you are a British bird fancier, then I'm sure that will be a familiar name. And if you're not, it's still probably a familiar name if you're within the hobby of keeping mainly finches. So Jack has offered to, well, we've had the chance to do some Zoom calls with him. So we've got the first today. We've got about 80 minutes worth of content. So what I've done is this is part one, and next week we're going to have part two, just to get it in more manageable chunks. So we focus on all thoughts today, Greenfinches and how Jack got started, with plenty of stories and useful information to learn from this video. Next week, the second one will be on linnets and other things that Jack's done, such as having skylarks down in a breeding cage, and further more information. So this should be a really good episode, and I hope you found it useful. So quickly, just before we start this one of the special episodes, I just want to put a quick special mention out there and a thank you. So to start off with, I'd like to thank Avian World Dublin for sponsoring the Natives of Norwich group. So especially if you're in Ireland and in the UK as well, then Dottie at Avian World Dublin will send, has so many products available, so do please check them out. The link will be in the description to their Facebook page and their website. Second, I'd like to thank you, a big thank you to Mac Finch for actually getting these sort of arranged. Mac took time out of his day and managed to contact Jack and some relatives to get this done. So huge thank you, Mac Finch there. It's very much appreciated. Next, I'd just like to thank you, Jack himself and his niece Stacey, for taking time out of their day, and Stacey for helping him out with the technology. It is very much appreciated, and I'm sure that you'll appreciate that at the end of these videos with all you've got to learn. And then finally, if you haven't already, join the Natives of Norwich group. It's in the link in the description, and we have such a wide variety of people from all over the world. We've got a lot of people in the UK, lots in Ireland, quite a few in Malta, Turkey and all sorts. So here's the breakdown of the number of individuals in the group from different countries. So if you haven't already joined, the link will be in the description. We're on Facebook at Natives in Norwich. So without further ado, this is part one of the Zoom room with Jack Lloyd. Hello and welcome back to the Natives in Norwich Zoom room. We've got a special episode today, and we're joined by Mr. Jack Lloyd. So thank you for joining us, Jack. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the birds you keep?
At present moment, I think I've about 8 species at present.
Okay, what species?
Not too many of these, just because they're my favourite bird. But I've a pair of yellow buntings, pair of larks, my siskins, my red polls, which I've bred for donkey's years, siskins on and off for numbers of years. This year now, the one's just laid its first 2 eggs. So them will be the 4th generation, them siskins.
Fantastic.
Then what else have I got? It's hard to remember. They grow always from the Greenfinches. You know, we have about 8 species at present.
That's excellent. So have you got all of those breeding at the moment?
So plenty to go at, keep me alive. I like showing, obviously.
Yeah.
Really like doing. As two for 4 pair in the kitchen, and there's 3 of them. I was happy. what would it be, a couple of hours ago, I saw my cock linnet mate in the hen, so that's on the way, because they can be a bit finicky.
Yeah.
And
Did you say those were in your
so,
kitchen?
pardon?
Did you say those were in your kitchen? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. We've got some questions about them a little later on. So how did you get started and what age were you?
Oh dear me, I seem to be. How can I put it? I think I was a very highly active as a young, from being born really, and I always wanted a bird for some reason. And the fellas in the street, the local wakes used to come behind the houses, and they all clubbed together to try and win me a canary, because on the stalls, them roll a penny and whatever they had, and they had 4 canaries on go, but nobody never won them. Obviously, they didn't win me one. And it was originated from Darley in Shropshire. He come to work in the mills, in the village, and he had birds, same as, what can I say, probably 70% of people in Shropshire had birds then.
Wow.
And I had a thrush when I must have been about 6-year-old for 4 years. Then as I got the gypsies what used to come and stay again us and saw the linnets what they had, you see, so that got me really interested. And I got my first linnet probably when I was about 12-year-old, and I've had them ever since. I wouldn't like to be without them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Till I've gradually, I reckon, as me, Terry McCracken, and I knew Andrew Hickson as a young boy with his father. And I reckon us 3 really were the pioneers of breeding British birds. It was always into me to try and breed them, but I'll be quite honest, I never ever thought that we could breed British birds. I mean, don't forget, with stuff what you can buy today, you were lucky to get an extra piece of bread, never mind anything else. And we moved on from having them in large aviaries, which I saw one fella locally, probably 7 miles away, were the first man as I knew to have an aviary. But he worked on the thrashing machine what used to go round to the farms, thrashing all the corn which was in sheath then, you see. And so he'd plenty wild seed, and he had this aviary. So I thought then, you see, this must be the way to go. But we moved on over the years, from big aviaries, as big as we could get, and then a bit smaller, and so on, you see, till we work down now to, I like experimenting, I get a kick out of it if I succeed, as anybody would, and till I've come to these wire cages, which I must try, you see, which I succeeded with breeding my linnets. The first nest, she only had 2 full eggs, and I took them away 3 or 4 days old, you see, and hand reared them. That's why the bird that I show is very, very steady and performed. And this 1 or 2 said, that's not breeding British birds, they have to rear their own. So next nest it had 2 more, and I let it rear them itself. And she's just building up at present moment. So keeping my fingers crossed.
Yes.
And I've bred thrushes in cages, large cage, like a flight cage.
Wow.
The blackbirds, a lad been today, he's 65 or 6 year old. When he was 15, he brought me an albino blackbird, which I
Wow.
managed to get eggs from, but they all disappeared. I've always been very, very busy. So all the time what they had with birds was rush, 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 or anything, because I've always been a rusher. And my cross bills, I bred those when they were very, very scarce. And funny enough, it went down inside of me just through the aviary door, which gives you a sight that, these birds will breed anywhere kind of thing.
Yeah.
But all the talk then, you see, was on what you would need to rear them. And that's not proved to be. Same with mealy red balls. They said you couldn't rear them without live food, but these was all the tales what went about then, and which you have been proved wrong.
Yeah.
Just one thing now, which I say to one or two people over the last day or two. We're going on and on and on. Lads on the site and everything, and they're mixing some of this food up. Well, you could have eaten it yourself. But I mean, if birds are that way inclined to feed, I've had red balls who'll salt their own seed. but I'm not saying don't use it or don't do it. If you're happy, what's it matter? But if birds, everything's meant to breed. So if they're good feeders, they'll feed with anything. If they're bad feeders, well, you can lose them giving them all the top stuff. But there you go. If people are happy in what they do, that's all that matters.
Absolutely.
So I've gone through most species. My Greenfinches, I've bred them. Just which surprised me, wouldn't go down in its nest where I in its nest sites at the back of the flight, and it laid its first egg in my great box. It just inside the door. So I tried and put a nest pan there and put the egg in, and it reared me 3 young, which I took away, which I would advise anybody to do. With species which you really want, if you know what I mean. And it reared me 3 young, and I got third best hardbill at Norwich with it. And then I've had them to rear them, but I've also lost them when they've been more or less flushed up. Perfect one day, they actually go in and they're all dead. So you've gone a long time to get them to breed and go down. So why lose them, with not taking them away and finishing them off, or hand rearing them from, I would think as a 1/2 inch, you could rear it from day one, really. Or a lark, or a bunting, because they've all got a big gape on them, so there's no problem in giving them some live food, same as mealworms or my maggots. But all my red poles, my siskins, my greenies, buntings, they will all eat maggots. Pinkies, which probably prefer, or maggots when they've gone into a chrysalis.
Got you.
And I don't know. They seem to be able to. For instance, a greenfinch hen one time, 5 young ones, and they stopped feeding when they was pretty well feathering up a bit. And
Yeah.
I was wondering what to give them. So I had some chrysalis, which was well on the way to hatching. The flies was formed in the shells, so I just put a pile of them in, and the next time I looked, the crops was as black as coal, all filled up.
Wow.
So them chrysalis saved the day.
Definitely.
So I'm feed with, you've got to keep trying things anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got some questions for you.
Have you?
That's excellent. Yeah. So, Jack, just to start with, how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I like to go a bit in front. I'll be 89 on 6th of September.
Wow. So
You can
you've
send
been...
me a card.
Yes. So you've been in this for
Aye.
82 years, or a very long time. But that is, so you've got as much experience as I think anyone could ever imagine. So we've got a question.
Hey. Excuse me. How do you think my wife's put up with me? But she won't let me have had them on the
Kitchen side. No, she wouldn't.
Mine one or two, but
Oh wow.
Okay, what's your question?
So we've got a question from Dave Coughlin. He says, with generations of selective breeding of greenfinches, they become quite big typey birds compared to the wild counterparts. And the way that they were, and is this? Do you think this is solely down to the way that they're paired, or do you think the bone structure has got something to do with it as well?
well, I've never gone into weighing them or anything, but most of the size is with weight, what they will put on it, isn't it? You see, but with selective breeding, they've gone better. Birds with a good head, which you'd never see birds in the wild. But I always tell people, you see, these birds are unnatural.
Yeah.
You'd never see them in the wild, would you?
No.
You see, and probably unnatural birds will do unnatural things. I mean, because you're going against nature to start off with, you see.
Yeah.
But obviously, you only need to look what they've done with sheep and pigs and anything.
Yeah.
How they've the weight they put on with that on them, you see, and they're massive.
Yeah. So, do you think it's solely down
But
to
I
maybe
tried.
feather as well?
I've bred my birds. Yeah, I mean, I must have what, 3, 4, I say, and one in particular, the colour, and had so much feather on it, and I put it down to throwing back. Probably, what was it? A bird that I won with, probably 7 years ago. They can throw back generations.
Yeah.
I mean, just for instance, I went to judging in Malta one year, and a lad called Michael Zara, he didn't talk a lot of English, and he run me back to the airport, me and my wife, and I gave him a small, just looked ordinary greenfinch colt, you see. And when Terry McCracken and Jim Egg went to judging, they put this greenfinch hen up. So Terry quizzed him where he got the parents from. He got best bird.
Yeah.
Best British bird, you see, with it. Terrific greenfinch hen. He said, well, I got a small cock off Jack Lloyd. I bred it from that. He said, have you any more like that at home? He says, no, only that one.
Oh.
You see, so they throw back
Yeah.
generations, you see. But I've bred my birds over that many years with breeding from birds that were naturally steady. And over all them years, I get it gives me a little kick. And I smile when I see all these fanciers. They'll put the greenfinches in show cage, and they're nice and quiet in the cage and use the perches, and they'll put on first time in a show cage. I know then where them birds have originated from, regardless of what they say, you see. Because
Yeah.
it's took me probably 30 odd years to get them like that. And they will gradually throw steady birds. If you breed off a bird that's flighty, looking at the back of the cage, off the perches, well, you know, the name of the game is showbird. So
Yeah.
if they won't show themselves, they shouldn't be in the running. So
No,
we
that-
just keep trying and going on. But I don't think they will improve them anymore. You know.
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. So we've got another question here. With all the developments and advances in breeding mutations across different finches, they're still always prone to go in light, especially the greenfinches. And some of them will drop off the perches if we don't give them sulfur drugs. Do you think that there's something we're missing in the diet, which is maybe why we get wild greenfinches that aren't going light or not as common?
Yeah, but the wild greenfinches do go light.
Yeah.
I've picked them up round my aviaries, you see. Lots had the same symptoms. I've even my nephews, when they were boys, bring starlings, which they can eat anything. My maid used to tell me it was impossible to poison them. Starlings. They fetched starlings and wheatears from up the moors where I bred my maggots, and I brought them home, treated them, and then after so long released them. Got them right when I've given them sulfur drugs. But the first time I bred my greenfinches of any amount, really, I bred 22, and I lost 20 out of the 22. The other two, I just threw them in a flight and said, "Oh, sod, you know, just please yourself, whether you live or die," kind of thing. And I reared the two. And then there was an old fella called Bill Harris. He was pretty well known, Bill, a grand old fella, and must have been getting up to 80-year-old. And he managed to surprise some greenfinches from Alf Williams, you see. He used to send in Devon cream up every other week to try and soften it. So Alf fixed him up with 2 pair, and he bred some terrific birds. As a matter of fact, it's still imprinted on my mind that the cock greenfinch he showed at the National at Alexandra Palace, God blind, it was in the number 3 show cage, English pattern.
Wow.
And it filled the cage up. Anyway, he asked a fella called Jack Spindley, he asked him, would he feed his birds for him? You see, they were there for 3 days then at the National. And what he did, he opened the door to put the seed in, and the bird shot out.
Oh.
They were flying about Alexandra Palace for 3 days before they caught it. So I rang Bill up, and he'd let me have a greenfinch hen. And I said to him, what do you give your greenfinches, Bill, to stop them going light? He said, sulfamethazine, John. So I said, well, how would I get that? Well, he said, ICI. when all comes to all, I see eyes only at Macclesfield, 20 mile away. And I can remember I getting a bottle, there must have been easier gallon in it. You can tell how long ago, £12, 10 shilling. It costs you that now for a bottle.
Wow.
And so after that, I lost very few. But I first come on to Baycocks, with being in the Farmers Union, they'd send me when they send you a book, probably a couple of times a year, 3 times a year. And it was telling you about this Baycocks, which they'd brought out for sheep. And they only needed 1 dose, you see. So I inquired with the vet and for birds, and we've been on that Baycocks ever since.
Wow.
Which is, without a doubt, the bee's knees. And I wouldn't advise anybody. I have known 1 or 2 people breed them without giving them anything, but they don't do it second year.
Yeah.
They must rear them by putting them on in an aviary and putting them on new ground every year. Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Same as they did with turkeys. Turkeys and pheasants are very prone to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's become that way that we've found out there's only red poles who don't need it. And
Yeah.
Jimmy Durnley gives it all his red poles and all, make sure.
Wow. So you've mentioned. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Just keep giving them Baycocks.
Yes, definitely. You mentioned earlier about live feeding insects and pinkies and different things like that. Do you feed them all year round, and do you add anything to them to make them more nutritional?
Well, I mean, live food is 100% protein.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So when you see these little pygmies in Junto, and he eats a dot grub, which is white and like a big worm, what they get out of them canes, and there's as much protein in that as what's in, I don't know, a pound of steak.
Yeah.
So, according to that, they don't need as much food, really, because they're getting all the protein what they need, especially when they're young. But if they're eating it, well, I'll feed it.
Yeah.
But the big problem now with greenfinches is getting them overweight.
Yeah.
Because I've come to the conclusion they start with liver problems. I know I'm not a doctor, but if you look at a greenfinch, what's been overweight, as it gets 18 month, 12-year-old, it'll start coming with a blue mark from under its rib cage, and it's on its way out then. Won't come in condition. It'll live for quite a while, but it loses all that brightness and it can't breed off them. Just waiting of them to die, actually. When I put it down, I get my British finch mixture. I riddle all the emp off and all the growths. I think it's them growths what do it.
Yeah.
Myself. Just put them all that weight on and causes this liver problem.
Okay.
It's same as my mother used to tell me, you'll kill them with kindness. And she's right.
Yeah. Wow. So what else have we got as questions? So actually, with your greenfinches, do you pair buff to yellow, or do you use intermediate birds a lot too?
No, I'd never put buff to buff.
No.
But you want it to double yellow. You're going in a bit nitty gritty now. You're going with the narrow. The heads will come narrower. I mean,
Yeah.
I look at the goldfinches now. The heads are bigger. The double yellow birds, and bigger faces means a bigger blaze. I mean, me looking at these birds with the colour of them, obviously, double yellowed birds, the heads would go smaller, but they've gone bigger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hmm?
So do you use
Somebody's
intermediate
put
feather?
somebody's put it on the site, which I've been saying for 10 or 12 years. In Ireland, there's two sorts of goldfinches. There's the Irish goldfinch, which is a smaller bird, richer colour, more tannin. And there's also the continental bird, what's just a migrant flying through.
Yeah.
So there you can think what I think.
Yeah. So, do you use intermediate feather when pairing your greenfinches?
I mean, do I what?
The intermediate feather, do you use that when pairing your greenfinches? So halfway between a yellow and a buff?
Well, I would say those are the best birds. Once you
Yeah.
get them, which same as anything else, you can go too fine or you can go too heavy, but you can get that much feather, and I feel that the bird itself can't control the amount of feather.
Yeah.
You follow?
Got you.
And they can't put it that neatness together. The amount of feather.
Yeah.
Whereas the shorter feathered bird is more neater and shows its that extra whoosh kind of thing, makes you look at it because of the smoothness of the bird.
Yeah.
But you can get the way how they've been bred, you see, you can get birds with the plenty feather, which is broad feather, or birds with shorter feather, what look a lot more neater. But it's just a matter of trying to produce the birds that I always remember reading in America when the fanciers are walking, looking at the birds as they're walking by them, and then all of a sudden there's something stops them dead in the tracks. When they see that bird what's got that something,
Yeah.
they call it a power bird. Yeah. And well, them's the birds what anybody can pick them out, really.
Yeah.
Because it's got something
Special.
attractive.
Yeah.
When I showed my linnet, the people that wrote said what a good bird it was. There was two foreign fanciers. I don't know who they were. Well, they didn't like them like that. You see, and this and t'other. And I said no. I didn't know whether to put something on the side. No. But if they'd have seen Dolly Parton walk up to the side of the road, what would they have done? Eh? They'd be hitting their horns and whistling. Eh? Tires would be screeching.
Fantastic.
You get me meaning?
Yes. Yeah, understood, Jack. So a lot of people have said, and myself included.
Excuse me, and she wouldn't need to sing.
uh, um,
Go on.
you're referred to as the godfather of Greenfinches, and many more.
I'm not the godfather of greenfinches. I've had all species of birds.
Yeah. Well, who back when you was younger would, I guess, have been classed as the godfather? Who did you look up to?
Ooh.
On the bird scene,
Yeah, yes,
So
yes.
even-
When you was younger with the
Yeah.
birds.
well, you see, I was a funny type of bloke, and I didn't find out. Oh, I didn't know the meaning of the word, as I was. What is it when you think as everybody's better than you?
Oh, you degrade yourself.
No.
You belittle yourself.
Yeah.
You don't think you're as good.
Inferior complex.
Right.
The way I was brought up, the way I was treated, as they wouldn't let me go in the next street.
Because you were naughty.
No, and it seemed to have an effect on me, as I would never push myself. You'd have never got me on here when I was 50-year-old.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, because I couldn't what's it with people. But you see, as I've got older, and I've become,
Confident.
what can I say?
More confident.
Yeah, but it's what
Proud of yourself, really.
it's what's given me confidence. I've got on in life till I found out all them people as belittle me, kind of thing. I found out I'm better than them.
Definitely.
But I don't look at it like that. Just as I'm Jack Lloyd, and that's it. You know.
Yeah.
You're a legend.
Exactly. Who did you look up to? Anyone?
Oh,
when you
I
was
looked
younger,
up. I looked up to Grosvenor Ridgway's type, and Jimmy Rutter, John Broadbent. Oh, I could name dozens and dozens of them. You see.
Yeah.
And I always remember the first shows I ever went to. My linnet came second, but the judge that judged it wanted to buy my bird off me after.
Oh
see?
wow.
And he was a lot younger than me, well, quite a bit younger than me then, and that was Grosvenor Ridgway. But Grosvenor were judging birds when he was very young.
Yeah.
Like Walter Lewis. Walter Lewis took it more or less under his wing, and must have liked birds, you see, and Walter, with him living near to him, you see. Yeah. And he used to get him and take him. They go to the shows until he got him judging. Well, I would think Grosvenor would probably be the youngest person ever to judge a bird show.
Yeah. Wow. So where did your line of Greenfinches start, and how far can you look back on past records with the current birds you have?
Going back time's a big problem with me. To be exact, I don't like saying much if I'm not exact. But we did have a bird show in Liverpool. We called it the Northwest National, and it was held in Liverpool.
Oh,
and
right.
It was a terrific show. And the judges were Walter Lewis and Jimmy Rutter. Walter was classed like as the top, or one of the top mule people, and Jimmy was the top British birdman. And Alf Williams showed 4 birds, 4 greenfinches. And he cleaned up, actually. He won everything. Best career bred, best British bird, best cock, best hen. And Alf was Alf. And nobody really handled with Alf. And he got a big lump of cardboard, and he wrote on it, mother and father, son and daughter. Yeah. No, nobody else would have done that, you know, at a bird show. And so after that, these birds were in great demand, you see.
Yeah.
All these top bird fanciers offered him all sorts. They were talking like £300, £350 for a pair of greenfinches. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But everybody else's greenfinches were obsolete against ours. And this is where it all started, when Bill Harris from Exmouth got some off him, and one or two got distributed out, and for some reason or other, he seemed to take to me, and he would say to me at the shows, come on, John, always call me John, which is my name. Come on, John, let's have a talk, let's have a look round at the birds. And you see, until I pluck courage for tasking, would he have any greenfinches? You see. So he said, well, if I breed any this year, I'll see you get one. So he did, and I went down there, I got one off him, and away I went, you see.
Wow.
So we've what can we say, these type of greenfinches from a very early stage of breeding them, and we've gone on and improved, which I've had massive birds. They never seem to be reproductive, if that's the word.
Yeah.
You know, because I think nature must take over somewhere along, because if it didn't, well, what can we say? You'd see wood pigeons as big as pheasants, wouldn't you? And so on.
Yeah. Greenfinches the size of pigeons.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Wow. So that was where your line originated.
Pardon?
So that was like where your line originated from, those birds you originally sourced.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So we've got plenty of other questions on here, Jack.
So that brings us to the end of part 1. So I hope you've enjoyed it and found it useful. I certainly found so much information from that episode, and so much to learn from Jack. He is such a wealth of knowledge. So huge thank you again to Jack for spending time to do that and sharing probably just a needle in a haystack worth of information with everything that he knows about British birds. So if you have enjoyed today's video, then please subscribe down below, leave us a like, get the notification bell on so you get notified every single time I upload a new episode of the Zoom Room, part 2 of this series, and my own videos on a weekly basis. And then finally, hopefully you found this useful, and if you have, share it with someone else who would find it useful. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.